even answered to under the direct examination. Then there was another point where the defense was trying to say, did Diddy take your phone away after he caught you dancing with Chris Brown? This in 2013. Cassie says she doesn't necessarily remember this situation because possibly to her, this is something that just happens so often. Then I think, Jesse, one of the more interesting points that had happened today was we heard this audio recording of Cassie back in 2014, and she was confronting this man named Sujit. Sujit had told Cassie in Atlantic City that he had seen a video of her, an sexually explicit video of her, and Cassie wanted to know where this video came from. How did it come into his possession, because she had assumed that this was a freak off video of her that was about to get leaked. And so we hear her in this audio confronting Sujit, and kind of, I think the point that the defense was trying to make was just that Cassie would commit violence. She said things along the lines of asking repeatedly, can I see this video? It's not me touching myself because you said someone else was inside that room. Sujit said that he had this video clip on his phone. You can hear Cassie saying, I will kill you. I will kill you. I will put you in a desert. I will cut you. She kept saying, I will kill you because you're effing with my life. And Cassie, at one point in this audio clip, said she'll get someone else actually to do it, and said that this SHIT is not cool. And, I think essentially the defense was trying to point out, because this was something under her direct examination, that she was talking about how Diddy security guards entered a conversation and they all had a sit-down meeting at a restaurant to obtain this video back. But from the defense's perspective, they're trying to essentially insinuate that Cassie was threatening to kill. And look, we've all been there, right? Where, I could have a bad day and say, I will kill. Actually, let me just kind of take that back a little bit, because I don't want this to be used against me or anything like that. But, there have been points where I think anybody can argue that we have all said at one point that, oh, I'm going to kill you, because that's how mad we get at another point. Another interesting moment that was discussed during this morning's testimony was Jonathan Auty. And we all know Jonathan Auty very well here at Law and Crime, especially you, Jesse, because you've covered him a number of times on Sidebar. Cassie was saying that Jonathan had taken a secret video of Cassie and Diddy during a freak off, and Diddy tried to make this video go away. That Diddy spent actually a significant amount of money to make sure that this video didn't get released. And even after Auty had taken this video during this freak off, Cassie had admitted that they never used Auty ever again during one of their freak offs. She said that she was pretty concerned about the situation, concerned that Jonathan Auty would release this video. There was even a point that they had discussed today just about Garrett and Cowboys for Angels, an escort service.
As you know, Nuvia gives you your final permanent teeth in 24 hours. In the old way, you would get a set of acrylic or temporary material
or something along those lines of that, and that some of the contestants on this show were some of the escorts used in these freak offs. And I could tell just being inside that courtroom today that there were some moments of just, I don't know if it was embarrassment or nerves or just kind of like, where is this going? Why are we talking about this? Especially as the defense was asking her about her rehab stint in 2023, where they were asking her, what type of treatment did you go for? Were you going just for depression, or were you going for sex addiction and love addiction? They were talking about how she did treatment therapy, where she had hooked up pretty much wires to her brains just to kind of help her go through trauma therapy, and how she was recounting her memories. And I could tell that that was kind of a hard point for her to talk about, one, because it was so recent. I mean, 2023 was just a couple years ago, and this was months before she had filed her lawsuit. And so I could tell during those moments that a lot of us were kind of like, where is this going, and why are they getting so personal, asking her about her her time during rehab, especially because it was kind of like, is this even necessary for them to talk about? And, I'm, again, not in the jurors' minds, but yeah, I was wondering if there was a little bit confusion on their end of what they were listening to, essentially, because in 2023, she was no longer with Diddy. She was married to her now husband. She had already had children. So we were kind of like, what does this have to actually do with her direct testimony at hand? And so, from what I could see of Cassie, she still has remained just like she has been the first few days of her testimony, remaining calm, cool, and collective. She, there were points you could tell where she just didn't want to recount these moments. One interesting point that she had said today is that she doesn't even hate Diddy. She said that she had love for the time that they had had prior to that, but she admitted today during the cross examination that she doesn't really hate him. And so, as we were kind of wrapping things up towards the end, right before we had went to lunch break, they were kind of starting to get into the breakup and everything that happened in 2018, how Alex Fine was kind of connected to that. And even when we were in the courtroom, Alex Fine had to step out of the courtroom during those moments because the defense might call him as an impeachment witness to impeach his own wife's testimony later along whenever they get their case and whether they present their witnesses. And so those were kind of the biggest moments and the biggest highlights that I had seen inside that courtroom. As far as just tone today, Diddy was doing how Diddy always does, very much so, kind of quarterbacking his defense, jotting notes down, passing them off, handing them to his attorneys. Esteveo, I will say, she just seemed like she was just kind of scrambling a lot at times, something that I don't think is very much translated well onto the transcripts, that a lot of us are just kind of like, and this is no offense to her. I don't know what it's like to be a criminal defense attorney. I don't know what it's like to do those types of questionings, but I think a lot of us were kind of wondering, why is she the one doing the cross-examination as opposed to maybe Tenny Garagos or even Nicole Westmoreland or Alexandra Shapiro, because she just seemed a little all over the place where she didn't know where to take the questions next. She had to kind of, again, confer with Mark Agnifilo or Tenny Garagos about where the questioning would come from. So it was a little interesting to see her do this cross-examination because it's from our perspective, working in the press, it seemed all over the place, but no idea kind of how the jury was interpreting just all of this information.
And we're trying to make sense of it too. I mean, I think with the treatment, I wonder if the goal is to say, well, were your memories manipulated in any way? Were they affected in any way about what might have happened? I mean, it was right before you filed the lawsuit. Very interesting timing. Listen, Elizabeth, I know it's raining. I know you have to jump back into that courtroom. Thank you so much for your in-depth reporting, as always, giving us a detailed play-by-play analysis and breakdown of what's happening in there. Elizabeth, really appreciate it, as always.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jesse.
You got it. Okay, so we're going to continue the conversation with Mina and Ben once again. Mina, you heard what Elizabeth had to say. It felt, from her perspective, a layperson's perspective, a little disjointed what the questioning is. Ben and I are attorneys. We're trying to figure it out, how they're making the legal arguments. I think I'm getting a sense of where they're going. But what do you think? Is it a little too disjointed?
They're fishing. They're fishing. They're trying to maybe say maybe she had a sex addiction and, or maybe this is the drugs' fault, and I think you're right about it's going to come down to closing arguments, right? How do they make sense of everything that we're hearing? Are they going to say that, this was infused by drug abuse and drug use? Are they going to try to use that? Or are they going to say that they were both sex addicts? They have to blame someone, right? The defense has to blame someone other than Diddy or provide an explanation for why these things happened. So they're fishing to try to do that, it seems to me.
We got a question for you, Ben. This is Lisa G. You know me. Actually, I do know a Lisa G. I don't know if she's saying that to me. Well, Lisa G. You know me. I think I know. Can someone help me understand, does Miss Ventura settling for a reported $20 million lawsuit impact her credibility in the court's eyes? I mean, Ben, the lawsuit that she filed did come up during her questioning.
Yes, I think it's a great question, and I think it might influence the jurors. On the other hand, if I were the government, I would argue that the fact that civil lawsuit is settled actually takes away any incentive for her to make it seem worse.
So we have more super chat questions coming in. Eva Rios, thank you so much, Eva Rios. Hello, is this the same judge who denied bond? Well, there were multiple judges who ended up denying Sean Combs bond, and I believe Subramanian was it was 2 or 3. I forgot. It was 3, right? It was 3 judges, right? And they actually abandoned the effort at one point. They could have actually fought it even higher. They could have appealed it even higher, and I think they cut their losses. They said we need to focus more on the defense moving forward to trial. We have a question from, again, a super chat question from RegHan43. Thank you so much for the contribution. Will the prosecution team subpoena or get celebrity mogul Jay-Z on the witness stand to cross-examine? Mina, I'm going to start with you and then I'll move on to Ben. What do you think?
First of all, if you know anything about Jay-Z recently and his acumen when it comes to attorneys, I think it would be very difficult. Jay is lawyered up, basically, and I don't see his relevance, right? We haven't heard about him being involved in this at all. Social media is running rampant with allegations and speculation about who were at these freak offs, who participated, who else aided and knew what was going on, but he hasn't come up. And I think even if he does come up, which I don't think he's going to come up, Jay is so well versed that I'm pretty sure he will never see that courthouse.
Well, and by the way, you're referring to, of course, the fact that he was accused in a very public lawsuit of sexually abusing a 13-year-old girl in 2000. That lawsuit against him was dropped, arguably because the allegations against him were debunked by not only NBC News, but also Jay-Z's attorneys, or seemingly debunked, I should say. Now, Ben, I'll throw it to you. Jay-Z, we're going to see him at this trial?
No. And I agree with Mina. If I could for a second, I wanted to go back to her point about fishing. Fishing is not something, as you know, Jesse, you want to do on cross-examination. It goes back to the old adage, never ask a question to which you don't know the answer, because you can get many bad surprises on cross. What they should be doing on cross is to be extremely organized, make their points succinctly, and stop.
Yeah, and I wonder if that might be affecting things. Ben, I'll just stick with you. We got a question from BK. If Cassie's testimonial is only classified as domestic violence, who can bring and help prove the racketeering? So if I could just tweak that question a bit, do you think that her testimony so far has helped with the overall racketeering conspiracy charge, Ben? And if not, who does the prosecution need to bring to prove it?
I don't think that they've established any of the technical aspects at all yet. I think this is all about poisoning the jury's mind about Diddy, which probably was done by the video. I'm not sure who the government has, but as Mina said, the government is going to have its ducks in a row, and they're going to have witnesses who can, at least on their face, satisfy the elements.
I'll just push back and say, I think that there is a little bit that they're making. So when she testified about, he has these security guards, he has these assistants who are constantly checking up on her, who were cleaning up after the freak off. So if you're talking about a criminal enterprise and him having a team of people and conspiracy, multiple people working together, I can kind of see how that testimony helps. If she's talking about underlying predicate crimes to prove racketeering, allegedly blowing up Kid Cudi's car, arson, right? You're talking about her doing drugs, drug trafficking. She's talking about being sexually abused, sex trafficking. So I think that there are elements that are, I don't think it's crystallized. I think I'm doing mental gymnastics here myself to try to make sense of it. It'll be up to the prosecution to do. Okay, here we got a great question. Okay, this is for you, Mina. This is an interesting one. Bobby Heath. Jesse is the very best at doing sidebar. First of all, thank you. I'm not making this up, by the way. These are the actual compliments that are on here, so I appreciate it. A question I have, if this is the question, a question I have is, if Cassie wasn't 9 months pregnant, would they put her on the stand last to finish strong? What do you think, Mina?
I don't think so. I think that video is so powerful. They have to establish the violence that Diddy is capable of, and then the supporting witnesses will fill in the blanks, right? Also, you have to establish the racketeering part of it and the organized crime part of it. And I think it was really strategic how they started with the bodyguard, the intercontinental bodyguard, in where the bodyguard said, I went there and he threw money at me, and he bought the tape for $50,000 or something like that. And you have to really establish that there's a cover-up, right? A cover-up that's trying that they're trying to really hide what they're doing. And I think you needed to see it so they can fill in the blanks after that.
Question for you, Ben, from Daniela3984. Please keep them coming in. We got a lot of questions coming in right now. But can new witnesses, Ben, added by the state attorney, prosecutor, or would it be possible for the judge not to allow new witnesses? That's a good question, a trial question about how much you can add new witnesses.
If you're like most people that want to sell their house quickly, all you want is a cash offer on the table, ready to go for you to say yes or no. Well, we want to give you that cash offer with no fees, no commissions, there's no realtor involved, and you have no obligation to sell if you don't like the offer. To get an offer, go ahead and click the link. The process is incredibly simple. You'll submit your information, including your property street address, and we'll have one of our professional house buyers review your property and get back to you within minutes. We'll help you sell your house quickly because we buy it as is. And if you don't like the offer, you can simply walk away. Click the link on this screen and we'll be in touch with you with your fair cash offer. So go ahead, click the link, tell us about your property, and get your immediate cash offer today.
Dutch Boy Professional Series works hard for you with top quality primers, durable interior and exterior paints, and specialty products to help grow your business. Dutch Boy Professional Series paints, available at Menards.
Justin Bieber on the stand. Very funny you should say that, Lisa. No, I don't think we're going to see Justin Bieber on the stand. Particularly, he came out today, Mina, right, and said that he is not a victim of Sean Combs. So, by the way, we are going to do a sidebar on that. It's going to come out tonight. So I'm actually going to record it right after this. But Mina, no, right?
No, he's already put that to rest. That rumor has been running around on social media as well. In fact, social media started pulling up everyone who Diddy has been associated with. Since they were young, Justin Bieber, Usher. I think his attorney made a good point saying, mentioning Justin really takes away from some of the actual victims here, and that we need to focus on those victims. So no, I don't think Justin Bieber is going to be showing up here.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think this is a misnomer and maybe a disappointment for people who thought this was going to be a celebrity-filled trial. Big names are going to be accused. That's not what this is. This is a very particular case with very particular witnesses. Having said that, there is reports that Dawn Richard is going to take the stand after Cassandra Ventura. By the way, you mentioned one of our viewers kindly mentioned sidebar. I want to just say something real quick. So,
Jesse.
I have to say it. I got to say it. Listen, we're constantly covering this case. We're constantly covering true crime news, and we make this content specifically for our YouTube audience. We just got the word that Sidebar was ranked number 32 in the top 100 podcasts on YouTube. And that is all thanks to you and your support and your viewership. Really, really thank you so much. Listen, not self-promoting, but I'm letting everybody know this is, that we're making this for you guys, and we really, really appreciate everybody coming to us. Okay, here's a question from for you, Ben, from nlin93. How is redirect going to be after this cross? What's the best plan? That is a great question.
Great question. Redirect is different from cross, obviously, but it also should be short. I think what you do is just take the 3 or 4 things that you want Cassie Ventura to clean up and do it. I wouldn't spend much time. Her direct testimony was effective. The cross was, so. I would just pick 3 or 4 and then sit down and get to your next witness.
Yeah, Mina, because this is the thing, right? This is the thing what I think they have to emphasize. You might have agreed to freak offs at the beginning. You might have agreed to freak offs one at a time. It's like 99% of the time you could say yes, but the 1% you say no, right? That's all that matters, right, Nina?
Right. And that's exactly what I was going to say. They just need to establish the timeline, right? Both of those things can be true. Both of these sides of this relationship can be true. She could have been in a consenting, open relationship, but she also could have been in an abusive relationship in where sexually things were being done to her that she did not want. They just have to establish when those things happened. This is a 10-year on and off relationship. So much can change. I think it's really important to also point out that she started these alleged freak offs when she was 22, right? At the end, she's in her 30s. Someone that is 22 can agree to something where a 30-year-old might be like, no, I'm not doing that. So they need to really clearly establish the timeline here, because I believe some of these text messages were from 2009. They're very early in their relationship. It's very easy to disapprove all of that, right? Yeah, they were in a consenting relationship at one point, but then it turned left, and then she found herself in a sexual relationship, and where she's having multiple partners that she didn't even know, and she was not consenting to that, and she was being blackmailed with these videos. It's very simple to clean up.
By the way, so the court is back. We are going to provide real-time updates about what is happening. Obviously, no cameras, no recording equipment. So here's what's happening in court. They just got back. The judge said, let's get this done before the jury returns. Combs attorney Anna Estevao says, we still think it's appropriate for this message to come in. Not entirely sure what the message is, but Emily Johnson, who's one of the prosecutors, responds, we still have issues with phrases like, I'd like to reconnect. Johnson asks, what state of mind is this being offered for? The judge responds, there are portions that are properly admissible, so this needs to be redacted if it's going to be admitted into evidence. For example, in the 5th paragraph, I've been getting my life together. No. Combs' attorney, Ms. Estevao, says, we can get that in through other exhibits. The judge says you can redact it right now. Estevao responds, I will do it right now. That's an interesting back and forth there. Obviously, the jury's not present, Ben, about what they can and cannot see about this controversial message or document.
Yeah, this is very typical during civil and criminal trials for the court to make rulings like that as to certain exhibits and what should and should not be redacted, and they can end up being quite important.
Yeah, and look, you got to be careful what you show the jury so it doesn't unfairly prejudice the case. Okay, we got a question from Chris Buono. Jesse, will Jonathan Odie be taking the stand, maybe testifying from jail? Chris, I got to tell you, if you told me at the beginning of the case, I would say no. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, his name has come up more times than I thought he was going to. Mina, are we going to, I mean, by the way, his tape from 2018, where he's in the interrogation room and he's like, I was a sex slave of Sean Combs and Cassie. And I was like, oh my gosh. Now it's like, okay, he might have relevant information.
Right. But the thing with him is his credibility, right? He's kind of like a loose cannon a little bit and Jesse, you would know more, but the feel that I get from the videotapes that I've seen, he's kind of like a loose cannon, right? So I think
I would say that's a fair assessment.
Might be an issue here.
Well,
I don't know if the safest witness is what I'm saying.
I got to tell you, I did a sidebar recently where he was talking about, in the video, he talks about having a settlement with Sean Combs. The Daily Mail reported, and again, we reported on it too, that there was this document that surfaced where it looks like a settlement offer where Sean Combs signed it. So things that may seem outlandish and wild maybe are now being backed up. I don't know. Okay. Got a question for you, Ben, from Christina. Do we know if any other victims and how many will be testifying? Also, witnesses to these freak-offs. Can we expect any and how many?
I think that, and Jesse, you may know the exact number. I think we're going to hear from 3 additional victims.
Well, there were supposed to be 4, right? And one of them we can't find. So yeah, maybe 3.
Yeah, I had understood originally there were going to be 4, which really, I think, establishes the pattern, which also, again, begs the question as to how hard you're going to cross-examine Cassie Ventura when you've got 3 other victims who are going to say the same thing. And yes, there may well be some witnesses, including the person in jail that you were just speaking about.
Yeah, I think other escorts or male performers may be taking the stand as well. Who they are, not entirely sure. Okay, here's a question for you, Mina. This is from Ari. Will Christina Coram, who is Sean Combs' former chief of staff, and Gene Deal, who at one point was his bodyguard, will they testify?
We don't know. I heard that they have about 100 people on the possible list. That's kind of the interesting thing about court. You could think something's happening or going to happen, and then there's a pivot because of maybe something that was said during testimony or cross. So I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting to hear their side of the story if they're being accused of helping in this alleged racketeering and organized sexual, crime company. It would be interesting to hear what they did. I know that one of them had released a statement stating that she's never aided in any crimes. So I think it would be important to hear their side of the story, because at the end of the day, you do have to prove that organized crime racketeering piece.
Got another question from Chris Bono that I think is great. I'll throw this to you, Ben. Would Cassandra Ventura need to give that money back for any reason? So again, she had that settlement with Sean Combs, now testifying against him. Would she have to give the money back for any reason?
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah. And Mina, you were shaking your head too. No.
And you know what? The fact that he gave that money in under 24 hours also speaks volumes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's although I don't know, there are people who've said, and Ben, you go to this. There are people who settle for all different kinds of reasons, right? Ben, they don't just settle because they're guilty of what they're, liable for what they're being accused of, if we're talking in a civil sense, but they settle for other reasons. They don't want it to amplify. They don't want to go through litigation. Maybe they settle before a lawsuit's filed because they don't want it to go public. We can't just automatically take the settlement to mean that all of this is true, right, Ben? Or what do you think?
Yeah, completely right, Jesse, that people settle for all kinds of reasons to avoid stress, to avoid legal fees. But the quicker the settlement, as Mina pointed out, and the amount of the settlement do speak, the bigger the settlement, the the worse it looks.
By the way, I have a question for you, Ben. He's got a massive legal team. Is that what you expected?
Yeah, that's what I would expect, although that can be an advantage and a disadvantage. Personally, I like a smaller team with everybody on the team knowing everything about the case. The problem when you have a big team, as you know, is that you'll have people who know little pieces of the case. So it's just a question of preference. But yes, I would expect him to have a huge team.
Interesting. Okay, got a question for you, Mina. This is from Donnie Darko 99. No one's asking, why did she sign the 10-album contract, and why did Diddy didn't let her create more albums if that's what she signed to?
Well, Danny, that is a great point. And
Donnie,
I think
Donnie Darko.
Donnie, thank you, Donnie. That's a great point. But I think the prosecution, if I'm right about this, they're going to point out that maybe because the music wasn't important to Diddy. At one point, Cassie did say, "This was my job, these freak offs." So I think the fact that she couldn't really actively participate in her music career because he controlled that, and then she had to participate in these other sexual activities. I think that's actually going to help the prosecution. But you're right, why sign her to this deal? She was also 19, and a lot of young artists sign deals that are not favorable to them. It's very important to have an attorney when you're signing a deal like that. And I don't know if Cassie had that present, but I'm not an attorney, but Ben, you are. I would never allow my client to sign a 10-album deal. I mean, like I said, even if you release the album every year, you would be under contract for 10 years. That's ridiculous.
Ben would never let that happen, right, Ben?
No, no way.
Mina, you say you're not a lawyer, but you know the law backwards and forwards as much as anybody else. Okay.
Let me say this though. I went to Syracuse University. I'm a new high school, television, radio, and film, and political science, Jesse. I was almost there. Almost.
And you're giving me a hard time about self-promoting sidebar. My gosh, Mina, what is going on? No, I just messed. So okay. Here's something that's interesting from Janae Hall. Janae Hall for you, Ben. Will witness 3 be held in contempt if they don't show up, since they're saying they do not know where this witness is?
If the witness violates a subpoena or violates a court order, the judge could issue a capias, which is basically a summons for the witness's arrest. But that's only if there's been proper service or a court order. If the witness is simply missing, the witness is not necessarily in contempt.
But isn't the problem, Ben, even if they were to compel her to take the stand, that could affect her testimony and might not work for the prosecution's benefit. And they might say, we're cutting our losses. She's an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got a witness who is so reluctant that she's avoiding service, you probably don't want that a witness, especially when you have the burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You don't want a loose witness there because it can be the subject of the closing arguments that Mina mentioned.
We got a question for you, Mina, from Moose Moose. How long does this case go for?
They're estimating 6 to 8 weeks, so 2 months tops, which I think is pretty fast considering other cases. I mean, Jesse, you and I covered Young Thug, and that went for over a year.
Don't use Young Thug as an example. That was insane. I mean, that shouldn't happen. But you know, it is interesting, Mina, when you think about it and the power of Cassandra Ventura's testimony. There are some attorneys I've spoken to who say, hey, it's great to get her out in first, right? Primacy, recency, one of the first witnesses they hear. Then again, 8 weeks later, that impact of her testimony might fade a bit. No, Mina?
Yeah, I agree. But we also don't know who's coming next, right?
Right.
And what their testimony is. So I think that the prosecution, it's hard to say because we're not in the courtroom. And that's some of the limitation with this particular case. You have to just kind of get it from word of mouth from other people. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say how these next witnesses are gonna impact the jury and what their testimony is gonna be.
So we got a question for you, Ben, from Gossip Squirrel. Okay, that's great. Will we see Diddy speak at any point during the trial?
Great question. Probably the most critical question from Gossip Squirrel. My personal theory is that he's going to defy convention and testify. The rule, as you know, is that the defendant doesn't testify. I go back to the video. That's why I'm not sure it matters that it will have been a long time before Cassie has testified, because the prosecution is going to show that video again in closing argument. But if I were the defense, I would think very strongly about putting him on. I think he's got to come. He's got to explain that. He's got to apologize for it. The problem is he's already apologized.
Yeah, he did.
Come in.
Yeah, he apologized, Ben, in that Instagram video, and that didn't go over well.
No, so he's going to face cross-examination out the wazoo. But I still think he's got to show some remorse so they don't think that he's such a monster as he appears to be in the video.
So we have a poll up on Law and Crime. We always put a bunch of polls up during the course of this case. The question we asked is, who do you think won week one? 67% say the prosecution won week one. 33% say the defense won week one. You think that's a fair assessment of the week, Mina?
I think so. I've seen some contradiction online. I've seen, the comments kind of say, where's the crime? This seems like a domestic violence case, but they're getting to it. They've sprinkled in different elements, bringing in the escorts from a variety of places. I actually have it written down here: prostitutes from Miami, Las Vegas, LA, Ibiza. They've introduced the fact that, Diddy might have blackmailed her by saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to release these freak off videos of you. They've introduced the fact that when something's going wrong during the freak off, someone's getting baby oil.
Real life isn't always kind to my floors, but I have Rejuvenate All Floors Restore to help keep them looking like new. With just one coat, the penetrating formula fills in scratch.
I think they've had some successes. I do think that it would be wise, to be honest, to put Diddy on the stand. I mean, if I was on this case, I'm not an attorney, but I would put him on. It would humanize him, and I think he'd be able to tell his story in his own words, and then help the jury really understand who he is. He's very charismatic. You don't get to be a mogul by not being a people person. So they're painting him as this violent person, which he can be, but there's also another side of him where he's very good with people. You don't have multiple businesses, Sean John, Ciroc, you're representing liquor companies. You don't get to be this person without being a good people person. And I think
Yeah.
it would be wise to let the jury see that.
I would say, look, it's his decision at the end of the day, and he's probably going to make a game time decision based on how they think they're doing in the case and whether it's necessary. I would get a question from Martina Masadas. Any insight into why Sean Combs' children were allowed in court during such sensitive testimony? Well, they're adults. They want to be there. They want to be there. It's their choice. I mean, it's probably not the most comfortable testimony to listen to about your father's sex life and what he's accused of doing. But they're there to support him. We get a question. Oh, we have an update from court. So yeah, this is Sean Combs' attorney, Anna Esteveo. I want to say we're going to finish with Cross faster than he thought, probably before the next break. Combs' other attorney, Mark Agnifilo, says, "May I speak with the government for 1 minute?" The judge says, "Bring the jury back." There was also something about Tenny Garagos on exhibits and redactions. Okay, we have a question here, Ben, from Soul Shadow. Do you think at some point we'll have psychological experts who can explain the mechanisms of psychological control in this type of relationship? And if you don't know the answer to this, Ben, I do, but you tell me if you want to answer this one.
If I were the prosecution, I would, but I turn to you for the actual answer.
So you're going to know this name. Dr. Dawn Hughes going to be testifying. And she will not be allowed to testify about coercive control, but other certain dynamics of a relationship she will be able to testify to. And I know, Ben, she played a role in your trial.
Yes, she did. Yes, I think she had mixed results.
Yep. Well, that's going to be very interesting to see, because I guess, Mina, the question becomes, and this is the question, right? If you were abused, Cassandra Ventura, if you were trafficked, Cassandra Ventura, why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you leave? Why did you, even though she said she didn't keep coming back, why did you stay with him? There are cases that our understanding of sexual abuse, and this is allegations here, they've changed over time, Mina, about why alleged victims do these things. And I was in the Harvey Weinstein trial. Okay. I mean, I covered it the entire time. And that was a big point of analysis, is that if Weinstein did this to you, why did you stay in contact with him? You can be abused and do that. It's documented. So it becomes a very interesting and important conversation to have, Mina.
There's a psychology behind the abuse that is very important to explain in this particular trial and any trial involving sexual abuse and trafficking.
Absolutely. So again, we have a question from Legs 7K, Ben. Now Cassie has given evidence. Is there a possibility there may be a male witness similar to witness 1? Now, witness 1 was the security guard, so I don't know if they were actually referring to witness 2, who is that male performer that allegedly was paid to have sex with Cassandra Ventura. But I imagine we're going to be hearing from probably more individuals in that line of work, Ben.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yep. We'll get a question from Ashley Glass. If the prosecution didn't think, I'll throw this to you, Ben. Ashley Glass, if the prosecution didn't think they could get him on these charges, why would they raid him and stuff? Like, I mean, it's a fair question, right? So we keep talking about, I've said this in the opening statement. It felt to me like the prosecution really was spending a lot of time trying to explain to the jury why this is a crime. Not if he committed a crime, why this is a crime. Racketeering, sex trafficking, complicated charges, right? But this is the Southern District of New York, Ben. These are one of the top prosecuting teams in the entire United States. They wouldn't have gone after him. Just why? Because they can't, there's no state charges he could be charged with, and they have to get him on something. No, they would go after him, I think, feeling like they have a strong case, right?
Absolutely. And they wouldn't do the raid. Of course, they have to get a judge to approve that. They wouldn't even try that unless they felt they had a very strong case.
We've got a question, Mina, from Janae Hall. Is it likely the defense will have any of his children testify on his behalf?
I wouldn't. As a parent, I wouldn't want to put my children anywhere near this.
Yeah.
Keep them away. Don't open them up to this. Protect them, right? I absolutely would not do that.
Well, if he's convicted and there's a sentencing hearing, I'm sure his children will make statements in some capacity in his side for sure. I mean, that's something we can expect. You're right, Mina?
I do want to add that there's also things that are unsaid, right? His children being there, his mother
Mhm.
being there. Those are all unsaid things. We support you. We believe you. I mean, a lot of the analysis from the reporters are, who's looking where, who's doing what. His daughters, when they were having very graphic testimony about the sexual nature of this trial, his daughters left. All of those things are being watched. The jury can see that. So there's a lot of things that are unsaid, um, that you don't need to put your child on the stand to say.
Yeah, and by the way, it goes to another question, Ben. When you have a client, right? Okay, whether it's a celebrity client or any kind of client, you have to coach them on how to behave in that courtroom at all times because the jury's going to be watching. I imagine the jury looks over at your client 60% of the time, 70% of the time to see maybe their reactions to everything. Am I wrong? I mean, you have to coach them about how they behave.
No, you're absolutely right. And every second you're in the courtroom, and it goes for the attorneys too, although people pay less attention to the attorneys. But if there's family there, and I agree with Mina, just having them there is great testimony because it shows support. But the family also needs to be careful how they react. So everybody has to be schooled on how to behave in the courtroom and not to speak outside the courtroom because you never know where a juror might be.
So keep the questions coming in. We're going to be talking for a little bit longer. We got another question from Chris Buono. Has the witness list been released? If not, why? No, I believe it's sealed. And that would make sense in a case like this when you're talking not only about, first of all, you have alleged victims who are testifying under pseudonyms. So it gives you the idea of the sensitivity of these charges. And you want to make sure that nothing impacts this trial, that none of their identities are revealed that could compromise their testimony in any way. Mina, this is a case where Combs himself has been accused of trying to improperly contact witnesses in this case. So having the witness list sealed in a criminal case like this, not surprising, right?
Right. And also their safety, right? I mean, they're painting this man to be someone that will blow up your car, right? So it's like people might be concerned about their safety. And that's why they wouldn't release the list.
Yeah, we have a question. Oh, this is an interesting one. Who do I give this to? I'll start with you, Ben. This is from Bird. Is it likely this is a trial by social media?
I don't think so. I mean, there's certainly a lot of social media attention and attention to your show, but I think the jurors will base their decision on the evidence they hear.
You would hope so, but obviously, look, Ben, your trial was the most watched trial, I think, of all time. And everybody had an opinion. Everybody was making videos. Their courtroom, people were making videos outside the courthouse. You don't want to have an effect on the jury, but it does become a difficult question.
Yeah, it does. And I could see the concern about it, but again, hopefully, as you say, hopefully the jury will put that out of their minds and focus on the testimony they hear from both sides and be fair.
We have a question. Oh, we have an update from court. So the jury is entering. Combs' attorney, Anna Esteveo, says, Ms. Ventura, we're almost done here. Ventura responds, thank you. Esteveo asks, I will read Mr. Combs' messages. You're going to make a beautiful mother. God bless. So that's apparently what Combs had written, Cassandra Ventura. Ventura responds, I said, thank you. God bless. Mina, what do you make of their exchanges, the loving exchanges between them? What do you think the value of that is?
I mean, there was love there, right? No one's denying that. And I think, as I said before, both things can be true, right? They could have loved each other, and this could have started very innocently. But obviously something went wrong where Cassie feels like she was victimized, and to the point where it's criminal. So both of those things can be true, and the prosecution has to prove um, what the facts are.
Have a question from Gossip Squirrel. If Diddy is convicted, what does prison look like for him? Will he get the celebrity treatment like house arrest? So before I throw that to you, Ben, when I talk about what prison could be for him, racketeering carries a maximum of life in prison. The is a sex trafficking. You're talking about a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years in prison. Transportation for purposes of prostitution, that's a max sentence of 10 years in prison. So prison is, if he's convicted, is a strong likelihood here. Talk to me, Ben, about what we could anticipate for a celebrity behind bars.
Wait, I don't know. It could cut either way. I mean, there might be people in the prison who admire him and might protect him, but it also could cut the other way. I think it would be a very grim situation in either scenario.
I don't know the answer to this one, Mina. This is Legs 7K. Do we know over the years if Cassie had hospital records to show any injuries to back her case? I knew there was something about medical records going into this case. Maybe our producers can check it out, but I don't think so. They would have been asked about it.
Yeah, from my knowledge, nothing was reported. And I think that's the big question that the defense really has to outline. Why? Why did you not report this? Now, you can easily put an expert on the stand and explain why, right? Many people of abuse and sexual trafficking, they have a strange allegiance to the person who's hurting them. And it's like I said before, it's a psychology to it. So, yeah, there's a reason why there are no medical records, but that's a valid point, and that's something that the defense really needs to hit home. If this horrible thing was happening to you on and off for 10 years, why didn't you document it properly?
I don't know if they're even necessarily fighting that this happened to her, Ben. I mean, there were photographs that were shown. We all saw the 2016 tape. Once you see the 2016 tape, you're like, I believe every instance when she says she was physically abused. They're just, I mean, the truth is, Ben, they're just recharacterizing what this abuse was.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the video is so powerful. It establishes the abuse.
One thing I will say from Cassie's original lawsuit, it said Mr. Combs had Miss Ventura's personal medical records sent directly to his email address. For instance, when Miss Ventura began experiencing memory loss, potentially due to excessive drug use and or head injuries caused by Mr. Combs' beatings, as described below, her MRI results were provided directly to Mr. Combs. Mr. Combs also repeatedly arranged for his staff to drive Miss Ventura to certain doctor's appointments. That's pretty illuminating there, Amina.
I mean, that's the power that we're dealing with here. I mean, where are her HIPAA laws? Because why is her MRI being delivered to someone that's not her? That's just insanity.
So we got a question here from Dr. N. Ben, does the defense get all the prosecution's evidence ahead of time? And can they change the list in the middle of the trial?
Well, certainly under Brady, they're going to get a lot of evidence. The defense is entitled to the evidence and will have it sufficiently in advance. And as I think we talked about earlier, there will be some witnesses who weren't on the list.
Well, I'll tell you, pre-trial, that was a ton of litigation between them. Ton of litigation where the defense kept saying, they're first of all, Sean Combs was hit with superseding indictment after superseding indictment. They say the prosecution's trying to introduce new theories. They want to introduce all this new evidence. They aren't telling us who's going to be testifying in time. We can't properly prepare for trial. And yet all the time, it seemed to me the defense was spearheading, going straight ahead towards this trial. That's a question too. I think that's a question too. It's very rare to see a federal criminal case go to trial in less than a year from arrest and indictment. But if he had made bail, I've always said he would have tried to push this criminal case as far down the road as possible. Him being locked up and being denied bail, I think he wanted to go to trial immediately, try to get, acquitted and get out of there. That still seems to be what the game plan was, Mina.
Yeah, and that came across really in the reporting. Initially, it was like, okay, he wants to get this done fast. We want to make sure that we get this done and over with. But then there was a request for the 2-month delay. So I think as more attorneys got involved, especially after Brian Steele got involved, it was more so like, whoa, we need some time to prepare. We want to push back. And then the judge did not agree to that. But I said that before. I'm surprised at how fast this is moving. And I think because it is a high profile celebrity, you know, the judge is very adamant from what I've seen about keeping this on track and making sure that this is tight and fair.
We have another update from court before we wrap things up. Cassandra Ventura apparently wrote Combs, "We should talk and have closure." And Ms. Esteveo, who's playing the part of Combs, said, Mr. Combs sent back a tear face emoji. He said, "You were always my ride or die." Ventura said, "I thought it was nice." Esteveo says, "You've been craving that." Ventura responds before, "I don't think I was craving now." So again, a lot of their dynamics in the relationship. Listen, I'm losing my voice. I've been talking so much. Mina Lona, Ben Shu, thank you both so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate your terrific insight. And it was great to see both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse.
And congratulations on being a popular podcast.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. It was,
you deserve it. You've been doing it for a long time.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's really all due to the support of our incredible viewers. So guys, thank you so much out there for watching us here on the live stream. Before we wrap things up, I just want to say we are planning to continue to do these live shows for you every day of this trial and try to cover this case for you as much as we can. And the reason we can do that, one of the other reasons, aside from your great support, is because we have an incredible sponsor partner, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. And if you don't know who they are, this is a firm with over 1,000 attorneys. And you know why they have so many? Because they win a lot. I'll give you an example. They secured a $6 million verdict for a car crash victim in Florida, a $13 million for wrongful auto death in Georgia, another $6 million for a trucking accident in New York. And I wanted to keep this in mind. This was all after insurance offered their clients significantly less in each of these cases. And even if you think your case isn't worth millions of dollars, why not just start a claim and see what you can get, find out what you can deserve. Morgan & Morgan, they make it so easy. You can start a claim from your phone in just 8 clicks, everything from uploading documents, signing.
When was the last time you felt the wonder of the wild? Discover South Bend's Potawatomi Zoo, where your inner child and wildest dreams come alive. Small zoo, big impact. Bigger, better, yours.
Delicio.
Délicieux.
Délicieux.
Vraiment délicieux. J'adore.
So, and there you have it. I don't know about this Diddy Trail. It's just so dark. I'm going to Cowboy Carter tomorrow, so I'm about to get myself together. And I'll see y'all. I'll probably popping in and out tomorrow, letting y'all see me on out there with with my grandbaby out there trying to celebrate Blue on her tour. So y'all take care and happy Friday. Don't let this Diddy Trail get you down. I think it's just kind of, it's just so sad. It's just, I mean, it's so dark. It's so everything. It's so nasty. It's just so, I don't know. It's just so that. But so we have, she's still going to be cross-examined. They should finish up sometime today. So that's it. That's all I got. I just wanted to continue what I started. And you guys have a blessed weekend. And enjoy yourselves. It's supposed to be pretty nice here today. So like I said, I'm finally going to dye my hair tonight. So, so I'll see you guys later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.